guess like we're finally getting the Evangelion movie released. I know that's not shonen related, so we can toss that up here in the front a little bit and just,
Where would shonen be without Evangelion? Really? Would it be the same?
I don't know. But
Devilman Crybaby is a shonen, and that is connected to Evangelion. Touches all parts of anime, I think.
yeah. Well, like the LCL fluid that we all turn into one day. It's we're all one. We all return to nothing.
かっこいいアニメパワーアップドキドキスタート
Welcome to Bravery Punch, the shonen show. Yada yada does it. Guess we're talking about Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. I'm Kunai Kenny.
And I'm Doki Doki Duffy.
Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Well, I tried to play it off as the cool Jotaro guy in our opening there with my yada yada does it, but I really couldn't be more excited to be here with you today, Doki Doki Duffy. Finally talking about Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. After years and years of begging, pleading, crying for you to watch this show, it just took our podcast to get us here. We talked about Part 1 and 2 already in an earlier episode. If you haven't heard that, go check it out. And here we are today, Part 3. And how are you feeling?
I feel like I finally understand a whole new world of memes. I've finally seen that you're approaching me. I feel like I understand so much more now about anime.
Yeah, and then welcome to a new elite class of anime connoisseurs, and that is a JoJo's fan.
What can the listeners be expecting in today's episode?
Today's episode, we're gonna kind of have Duffy's general reaction off the bat here. What did he like? What were some of his takeaways from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? I'll chime in here and there, of course. Gonna move into a break. And after that break, we do have a new segment, which I will talk about more after the break. You know me, always love coming in with a new segment. And, of course, we're going to wrap off the show today with a deep, deep dive. I think we're going to have a lot to say about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3 and how it fits into the Bravery Punch pillars. No pillar men this time around, but, we got our stands. We finally got our stands. So, Duffy, I guess, as just let us into your heart right now about some of your general reactions to finishing JoJo's, a show that I watched this week to week, mind you. I watched Part 3 week to week. I saw Parts 1 and 2 after they'd aired, but this is when I started watching JoJo, and I saw all of this unravel week to week in high school. Tried to get you to watch it, but at least we're here now.
From this show, I can definitely tell why the crew is considered such an important part of our pillars. When we drafted those 3 pillars, I knew the hero would be there. I knew the power and progression system would be there. I didn't really think about the crew as much. And from watching this show, I can see why both you think the crew is important and how the crew aspect has really affected shonen, because this show is so much about this gang of dudes just going on a fun journey. And it was a lot of fun. I really liked the ups and downs of it. I was really sad when I thought spoilers, by the way, for all
full spoilers for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3 ahead.
Part 3, but you can do it. I watched it in like a couple of weeks. I was really sad when Abdul died, really excited when he came back. It was a lot of ups and downs. I do have some notes from watching where first thing I want to say is I knew Overdrive wasn't just going to be done. I knew Hamon wasn't just going to be done. I knew Araki wouldn't do me like that. And I have a hopefully original take here. I know I'm like years late to not even the anime. I'm decades late to the manga. But hopefully this is a hot take for Hamon, because I am so happy, first of all, that Joseph Joestar is in this. I was sold. When he walked in at the end of Part 2, I was like, who the heck is this old dude? Like, what is this? And he comes in saying, I'll never forgive the Japanese. Like, who is this man? And then when it was immediately, as soon as I knew it was Joseph, I was so psyched. So psyched. But I've got a whole Hamon take I'm excited to share. I don't know if we want to jump into that. other reactions first, though. I don't know, any memorable moments? Because you watched a couple episodes with me here and there.
Yeah, just every time I rewatch the show, something about it hits me harder every time. I just fall more in love with these beefy boys. You know, as you go through the Joestar bloodline and meet all the other characters, it's so much fun to come back around and see the earlier parts of the bloodline and things like that. And I just had such a blast each time I got to watch your reaction to specific episodes. I think that, like, you know, played a big part in my enjoyment with this rewatch. And, you know, just every emotional beat hit me so much harder this time. Like, I was bawling during Iggy's death. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh, I did.
Something about Iggy's final moments there. I was like, oh, what a good boy. What a good boy.
Well, on that note, my first reaction to this show is that it's actually really violent. In fact, it got censored. We watched it on Netflix officially. Yeah. We always watch our anime officially when possible. And a lot of it was censored, both in terms of violence and Jotaro smoking because he's too young.
Oh, yeah,
which was
so
funny.
Crazy.
So I remember we were talking big about Demon Slayer and freaking Attack on Titan being big violent, but no, this show is from an older story that was really, really violent. And on that note, you probably mentioned this last time we talked about it, but we might be technically exiting shonen territory, right? Is this when that transition happened?
No, it was 2004.
Oh,
it was a lot
while
later. Yeah,
okay.
This is during the 80s. And I think what's really interesting about kind of this arc in the time frame that it sits in is it was I guess this was when tournament arcs were like the thing, Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho, Fist of the North Star. All these shows are really like centered around like the hero just like proving they're the best by, you know, beating all other contenders. And Araki wanted to do something different, and he had just read Around the World in 80 Days, and that's where part 3 kind of came from, almost a response to the tournament arcs happening at the time of shonen. And that's one of the big reasons why JoJo is as big as it is it just showed that, like, hey, you can still make a shonen that's not doing everything that all other shonens are doing right now.
That definitely makes me appreciate the show in a new way, because even though the boys are really beefy, perhaps the beefiest we've seen, a lot of the times it still comes down to outwitting and just outsmarting and even outcooling. I'd be like being cooler than your opponent, like when they fight Darby the player and Jotaro's just like more confident. So that's cool in the context of that time for sure.
Because it still has the essence of a tournament arc where it's like week to week it's a new fighter, it's a new challenger, it's that monster of the week idea almost. But I think it's done in a really unique way where it's this journey, not this stage. You know, it's a cool response to the era of anime that it was in, or manga.
Definitely mentioned that week to week format in our pillars. So to hold that thought, my last thing I want to give is my hopefully hot new original take on Hamon and its disappearance or lack thereof. Because I don't know if Araki did this intentionally, but I think it's actually really cool that we still have one Hamon user, and it's Joseph. I view this as, what I wrote in my notes, is this is like the grandpa who holds on to old technology and doesn't want to use the new smartphone. Because he knows how to use this, and it works for him. And we see him use it a couple times. When he has his fight, it's not quite in Egypt at that point. They're in the streets of some city, and there's the freaky stand that's like growing on his hand. He uses Hamon to finish it off, and he always yells overdrive. He never really yells Hamon, but it shows the glowy sunlight energy and stuff. I really like that for a couple reasons, because it's not explicitly said, but stands feel like a very natural progression of Hamon. They don't really say it's like the sunlight life energy stuff, but they say it's the spirit, like the manifestation of your soul or whatever. And that's like the same thing. So I really view stands as an extension, like the next level of Hamon, which is fun. And then Joseph has a stand, which I was happy about, but it's weak. It can't really do a lot. It's Hermit Purple. It's the vine. And while it has its really cool uses, which I don't know if you want to mention, it has its cool uses, but it's not like a strength-based stand. So he has to go back to what he knows best, his old tried and true methods, which are Hamon. And it comes out in a few key moments, but the new guys, the young blood, they don't need Hamon. They've got big boy stands that they're using. And with Joseph sort of leaving the picture, I'm not sad that Hamon is leaving. It feels like a very natural, almost like technological advancement in this war against evil in this world. So I like that it just didn't disappear.
Yeah, no, I love how we have Joseph in the story. I think that is like some of the most fun in JoJo is when we get those reoccurring characters. And it was so weird. I was reading in an Araki interview that he mentioned something about how he doesn't like to bring characters back for like nostalgia purposes. It's only truly if they fit into the story he will bring them back, which I don't know. As you'll see later on in your JoJo experience, is an interesting comment for him to make, because I feel like the show in some ways does have a nostalgia in a sense, even though, you know, I didn't read it in the 80s or anything, but like that idea that you watch this whole bloodline and everything progress and seeing Joseph being like, oh my gosh, like you're old now, but you're still cool. I know how you lost your hand. It's just something about that you don't get in a lot of shonen, and I just love bringing back characters in later parts of JoJo. It just it brings such a whole new element of fun. Love my boy Joseph. Araki wanted to give him a weaker stand to kind of pull him out of the fighting spotlight. He wanted him to be more of a navigator for the crew. I know we can talk about that more later on in the show, but
Great decision, I think. Great decision.
Yeah, so it made Joseph have to think more and use his wits the way that we love to see Joseph do. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more later here, but I think, are we going to take a quick break here before we head into the next part, or do you have any other final thoughts? Or actually maybe before we take a break, rewind a little bit. I know we talked a bit about your reactions to the show, and I mentioned earlier on in the show that I've watched this since high school, so I guess maybe, you know, not my reactions so much, but I did just want to mention how special this show is to me for some weird reason. I don't even know how to put my finger on it, but like something about the whole aesthetic of this show, like the characters, I felt like recently rewatching like JoJo's, I like walk more confidently. I want to like feel the same energy as these characters. There's something about them that is just so inspiring to see, and that's why we love shonen. That's why we always come back to shonen. And ever since high school, like I think something about their air of confidence is really like what brought me into this show. Each time I watch it, like I'm just like enamored by the glamour, and I think like this show has so many weird ways to play in my like sexuality too, I guess, and it's just like there's
and gender expression,
yeah, it's just like I think there's so many beautiful parts about this show where it is like tough and manly, but also like not afraid to be emotionally driven, and to, you know, it's not always about strength. And there's just, I don't know, so many of these elements I love. We're going to be talking more about later, but I just really love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, as you will hear me talk about more later. And I've just, ever since I've been watching it in high school, watching it week to week, waiting for each part to be announced, it has just been like such a fun experience to be a part of too. I think it's a really like, it is a weird community, but like all of the Reddit groups, the Facebook pages, all the things I'm a part of, just like the JoJo meme content, it is just truly like this fascinating world, and I just wanted to get that off my chest. I love this show, manga, so much, and I cannot wait for part 6. I don't read it. I did start to read it one time, but something, I don't know, David Production really does, I think, like add this extra layer into JoJo that I'm really excited to see part 6 animated. And I'm just, it's ending here soon in August, and I know Araki deserves his break, but gosh darn, did he make something beautiful.
This is the first I'm hearing of JoJo's affecting how you go about your life. I almost want to hear more. I don't know if that's too exclusive for on air.
Let's get it. Do you have any interview questions here?
Well, Kunai Kenny here has been definitely getting some ice lately from our good friends at Otaku Castle.
Otaku Palace.
Otaku Palace, thank you. Looking good. And all these boys in JoJo's, pretty much all of them have their ears pierced, I know for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's been affecting the way you walk. Tell me more about that.
I don't know. Just like when you see Jotaro, so today it was raining out and I was wearing like my long like trench coat jacket, and when I was walking in, I was like, oh man, like this flow behind me, I just like feel like Jotaro a little bit. I just like stood up taller and held my head up high and was just like, I don't know, I just like felt that Jotaro energy just for a moment, and been trying to, you know, I feel like we both have been talking a lot more about what we're wearing and stuff, and now that we're out of COVID and going out more, I've been trying to like work on how I dress and stuff a bit more. And again, I look to JoJo a lot in a weird way, just because I think the fashion is so fun and wild, and like trying to emulate outfits like that sometimes in whatever way I can is I just think is a fun thing to do. And it really like in the inner monologue in my head is just like that Jotaro voice.
As long as you're not copying Polnareff's haircut or Avdol's
shoot.
iron underwear,
Oh God.
then we're good. Because I think all the other fashion is great.
I guess I'll cancel my haircut appointment. And I'll send back my metal underwear.
But totally, for me, I don't know if I feel the same effect, but I definitely, I love to go to the gym and I love to work out. And I definitely look up to these guys. Like Joseph especially is a 60-plus-year-old man and still just killing it. Like I would love to look like that. Obviously, we know these are not realistic body standards for any person, but they're inspirations. They're awesome. And Joseph is definitely awesome that he's so fit and strong and just still doing stuff at his age. And then, of course, the rest of the crew is awesome, and I would love to look like them one day.
Oh yeah, I like some of the later part JoJo design is the kind of physique I would love to capture one day, and we can talk about that in those episodes. I just think it's like a truly inspiring show, like especially too when you hear like a stand name or a character name, it's like a band. It's like, oh, I want to look up that band. I just think that's another fun part of it too. I just so much inspiration in that show.
Side note of negativity before we pause here is that
Don't.
Netflix, why are you not translating the band name titles?
Yeah.
And sometimes
That's
it's
the
just
worst.
confusing. So we talked about this with like Wham versus Wamu last time, I remember. But it's weird. Like
The
there's
Oingo Boingo brothers, I think, is the weirdest one.
Mondata Zenyatta, bizarre.
Yeah.
And another one that I think is especially weird is Jay Guile becomes Centerfold.
Yeah.
Like you're not even avoiding copyright at that point.
Yeah.
Centerfold is like the song, is like the one song everybody knows.
It's like,
so
what is happening?
well, you're not avoiding it. You're just
Yeah.
making it more confusing to
Vanilla
read.
Ice wasn't,
Vanilla Ice was not.
or did it just say Cool Ice?
Oh, it did say Cool Ice.
I think it said Cool
It said
Ice.
Cool, but it's so
Yeah.
clear from the Japanese voice acting. Bonita Ice.
Yeah.
So I could even go so far as to say that's like an accessibility issue, that they're not literally saying the things the characters are saying, and
Yeah.
I don't really like that, Netflix. So
Yeah.
fix that, please. Thank you.
And with that, let's take a short break.
The Rail Tracer from Baccano?
All right, here we go.
Welcome to V Punch, hard-hitting VTuber news. I am your host, Kunai Kenny, bringing you the latest, greatest, and hottest stuff in VTuber news.
And I'm Doki Doki Duffy, and I'm here for the ride as well as you listeners. Let's see where this goes.
All right, so those of you who might not know, I'm a big fan of the VTuber community. Those of you who don't know what a VTuber is, it is a virtual YouTuber, and essentially we have the technology now where we can watch anime girls play video games, anime boys and girls play video games. It's a pretty incredible technology. 2021, thank you. Thank you for bringing this to the world. And what is happening in VTuber news today, you ask, my friends? Well, today, on this July 19th of 2021, Natasha Yanners is celebrating her 1-year anniversary. Just moments ago, we watched the new outfit reveal. Doki Doki Duffy, we're so excited about this, aren't we?
It's also the One Piece anniversary, which, is a little more important to me personally. But yeah. Natasha
Yanners celebrating her 1-year anniversary. Congrats, Natasha. We love you. One of my favorite VTubers.
She's got some good music.
She does have some great music. Check her out. And also in sadder news, the VTuber community is still recovering from the recent graduation of Coco Kiru from HoloLive JP. She played a big part in popularizing VTubers in the West. She spoke English in some of her streams, and she started to subtitle some of her streams. Really opened up the West to dive into VTuber culture and communities, and even in that in itself is what birthed HoloLive EN. So she is just like a massive part of what this community is today. So it's sad to see her go, but I can't even imagine what the VTuber work life is like. So, I hope she gets some good rest, and I'm excited to see whatever endeavors the person behind, whatever endeavors Coco Kiryu goes on next. And in brighter news, Gargura has surpassed 3 million subscribers, making her the biggest VTuber of all time, surpassing Kizuna Ai.
That is kind of sad. Kizuna Ai definitely.
That's pretty
She and I go
bonkies.
way back.
That's bonkies.
Yeah.
Whoa. Crazy.
We'll see if her musical career can compare though.
Yeah,
Kizuna Ai's music, top notch.
Hey, Reflect is a pretty boppin' tune.
It is.
It's a boppin' tune. She did release her first single recently, Reflect. You should go check that out if you're a fan of Gargura. Any chum buds out there, you hit up your boy Kunai Kenny. I'm looking for more chum buds.
And if you want more shonen, we'll be back soon. Any other VTuber news to add?
Of course. One final piece of news here. Hololive EN has introduced its first idol, Iris. Interested to see what this career holds. Not super excited about the character design. Up front, I will be honest. I know this is a news show and I'm not really supposed to give my opinions so much, but this has been a very opinionated newscast.
I actually know a thing or two about Iris because for my guilty crown heads out there, Egoist, remember them from 2014?
No, it's the original anime, sorry.
It is an original anime. The artist, the visual artist that did all the artwork for Egoist with Inori and her pink hair on all the album covers, that same artist did the artwork for Iris and made the model for her, which is definitely a lot of work. I know people pay a lot of money to get those high quality models, and she definitely has the highest quality that I've seen on Hololive EN at least. They're really trying to go more and do more stuff with that. So although I don't love her music necessarily, I definitely respect the art that goes into making her who she is.
Yeah, we're excited to see where you go, Iris. So stay tuned for more VTuber news. Not this episode, but later on. I've been your host, Kunai Kenny.
And I'm Doki Doki Duffy.
And this is V Punch, where we will now return to your regularly scheduled programming. Dun 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 dun. Bow. Welcome back to Bravery Punch, the Shonen Show,
where we are discussing the pillars of Stardust Crusaders.
And let's go right ahead and dive into pillar numero uno, and that is our hero and dream. We're going to go and look at pillar 1 here, the hero and their dream, Jotaro Kujo. And Jotaro is an interesting hero because I think Jojo doesn't center around our hero quite as much as it really centers around our crew. But he does sort of have a dream, I guess, in a sense. It's not so much a dream, more of a goal, a mission, and that is to fight Dio and save his mother. In this sense, it's not so much the dream, it's more the inherited destiny.
Exactly, my friend Kunai Kenny. You forgot the third part of that pillar. I want you listeners to picture a triangular pillar. I don't know what they call that in Greek history class. A triller, if you will, because we got the hero, but as part of that hero is both their dream and their inherited destiny. And I'm inclined to agree on the dream front. It's really not much. He doesn't really aspire to be anything. He's not making any bold claims like we see Luffy, like we see Naruto, like we see so many modern shonen heroes do. And as we discussed in the last JoJo's episode, check it out if you haven't. That's okay. The shonen hero doesn't need necessarily that big dream as long as they have that other component of the inherited destiny. So what is the destiny that he's inherited? What's like the burden that's thrust on Jotaro Kujo?
It is to fight his great uncle, I guess, kind of.
Wait,
step
why are they
uncle,
uncles?
because he's Jonathan Joestar's adopted brother.
Yeah, he sure is.
So I guess it is his grandfather's body too, but he's fighting Dio. Jotaro Kujo is set to fight Dio, who is a head attached to the body of Jonathan Joestar, who we have seen and talked about in part 1. And again, I just want to reiterate how awesome I think it is that Dio is such an epic villain already at the beginning of part 3 because we have seen him in part 1. I think that something about that setup I think is so powerful here, and it's like how more villains should be done.
Yeah, and how that fits into the archetype here is that Jotaro was just born in this world. He didn't even know about Dio. Joseph, the grandpa in part 3 hasn't even met Dio. Like, Dio is not really around, but already has started influencing their lives from generations back.
Yeah, it's a story passed down that, like Joseph says, like, I was told this story by my parents and I must tell it to you kind of thing.
And so there's nothing more indicative of a burden thrust on him than, hey, our ancestral enemy has our great-great-grandpa's body. We got to go kill him or your mom doesn't die.
Yada.
So that just fits very nicely into that inherited destiny aspect, even if there's no dream. But what about the man himself? Who is Jotaro Kujo?
So Jotaro Kujo was initially inspired off of the actor Clint Eastwood, like his whole kind of demeanor, his whole vibe. Araki has said is based off of that. The pointing, the smoking, the badass who doesn't need to say much but gets the job done. I actually have a quote. Araki says a kind of about being based off of Clint Eastwood. He says, quote, "Perhaps because of that, Jotaro seems a bit mature compared to other shonen manga main characters. I think Joseph was a better fit for the Shonen Jump style of main character, but to me, Jotaro is a true hero. To me, heroes are solitary. They don't seek value or praise for doing what they believe is right. In other words, their justice goes unrewarded. Sometimes going down the just path makes them end up alone. Basically, I think heroes aren't supposed to have allies. Jotaro never opens his heart and keeps his feelings inside because he's a lone hero. Even after defeating enemies, he was never going wild, crazy, and happy. He just said, yada yada da. That's all he needs."
Wow, I'm really sad now. Wait. Wait a minute. I started out that quote being like, oh, yeah, I like the idea of him being mature. That's cool. I was going to talk about how he was different. And then Jotaro's sad and closed off his heart. There's a lot to unpack there, Araki.
Yeah, I think he does say that, but I think Jotaro's heart really does grow. In the end, to some degree, he looks at that picture of the group as he's flying away on the plane, and he smiles. And that's like some of the most emotion that we see through him in the whole entire show. And I think that's a really kind of beautiful part. He's not our hero who is growing and progressing. He is just doing what he's got to do to get to save the day. Like we see, like, I think you wrote this down somewhere, like how he just beats up lovers right away. That stand user, he just kind of goes in. He doesn't even care. And he's not in it for any moral code, really. He just knows his mission and he's going to accomplish that mission. And I think that's what makes Jotaro an interesting hero compared to most, is he is not really driven by goodness in the way that Tanjiro is. Like, Tanjiro literally cares about evil monster beings, where Jotaro will kill someone if he has to get to Dio. So it's just like it is a vastly different thing, as Araki says. It's not the same kind of fun, love-hearted hero. It is more of a driven hero.
I like that comparison. I wanted to mention before you went on a roll there that I think in terms of Jotaro showing emotion, he also cries at the end when Polnareff and him are separating. So he definitely has moments of emotional opening, I think, that I appreciate. But really interesting comparison. He definitely doesn't show that compassion that I love to see in other heroes. I don't want to say he doesn't show compassion for his friends, because he obviously cares about them. And as soon as like a soul gets stolen, that happens all the time in the end, he's always trying to avenge them and get them back. So it's not that he doesn't care. I don't want to look at it like that. I think he just doesn't show his emotions in the same way. And I don't want to say he doesn't have them. Maybe Araki wrote him thinking he didn't really have those emotions, but I prefer to view it as he just doesn't show it as loudly and as out in front as other shonen heroes do. And that's okay. He doesn't need to do that, because he's still, like you said, he's still doing the action. Actions speak louder than words, right? He's still doing everything he can to save his friends and save his grandpa. And even if he can't be so outwardly emotional about it, he definitely cares in those moments that we see.
And we still have like the classic Joestar mindset of, though he does have like an incredibly powerful stand, it's not always about him overpowering the other stand user. He still has to kind of use his wits a lot, even to beat Dio in the end. It's really kind of luck to some degree and a lot of planning and thought into it. It's not, again, not powering up and things like that. Star Platinum is just kind of Araki has described it as this guardian angel for Jotaro. That's the design, what it's supposed to be. Even though he has that crazy guardian angel, he still relies on his wits. There's the part when he's in like the cart and he's like, I'm going to use the old Joestar technique and gonna run away. I love that.
I want to say more about that when we get to the power and progression.
Yeah,
system,
yeah, we can
so
talk. We
I'm
can
gonna
talk
hold
about
off
that.
there.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is I know I did just a little emotional opening up of my own for Jotaro, but I definitely didn't click with him as much as I do with other characters, and I just think that's not an indicator that he's a bad character. I just think he's very different, like you've been saying, from other characters. Like Tanjiro immediately grabs my heart because he's just such a more outwardly emotional character, I think. And I think I'm like that as myself. I'm very emotional. I get teary-eyed thinking about some of these boys on our wall here in the studio. Jotaro, and I just don't necessarily connect on that way, but that doesn't make him a bad character by any means. He's just a very different shonen hero that I had a lot of time with and appreciate, but
He's a bad boy shonen hero.
a bad boy, a baddie.
And we haven't had any bad. I mean, I guess Light,
Ultimate bad boy.
the ultimate bad boy. But he really is.
Aaron
I think.
Yeager, I don't know.
Yeah, we've got some bad boys.
But he's like a cool bad
He's
boy.
a cool bad boy, and I just want to be him.
Well, I want to say on the cool thing, and this will get into our crew aspect more. Jotaro is very cool, and I almost think to a detrimental point at times. I don't know. Kunai
No.
Kenny here is shaking his
No.
head, but Jotaro can't get into the wacky shenanigans some of the other characters do. At times, this is the last thing I'll say on Jotaro, is he doesn't even feel like the main character. I like that quote you said about Jotaro being different from their shonen heroes, and I get that. He's just almost not the main character at times. There's so many episodes in a row where it's not focused on him and it's focused on the other characters, and we'll talk about the other characters. I'm not making an indicator of them or not, but he's just out of the picture a lot sometimes, and he'll come in occasionally to like save the day. We love to see that. Yes, there's a couple Polnareff fights where he does that, but sometimes he's just literally not in the show, and I wonder if there was like outside pressure to include more wacky shenanigans, if Jotaro was too cool for it, if I'm just making stuff up and Araki just had the plan the whole time, and I don't know what I'm talking about. That's possible too.
Well, my friend, I think I'll be able to respond to this better when we can talk more about the crew. Because as I said, though it is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I think this show really works as the whole crew. And yes, we do have Jotaro Kujo, our main hero, our main character, but I think this show just works so well because it isn't centered around him as much, and it allows for a lot more weird and wacky and bizarre adventures to go down. And so I think we can talk about that a little bit more with the crew. But before that, ready to take a quick break?
Let's take a quick break. Stay tuned for the crew, and after that, the final pillar on Bravery Punch.
俺は海賊王になる
No official sponsor today, but make sure you are subscribed to Bravery Punch wherever you get podcasts. Make sure to rate it or like it wherever you're listening. You can follow us on Twitter at Bravery Punch. Would love to hear you in the mentions. Let us know what we should talk about next or what you thought about today's episode. What's your favorite stand? You can also find our email in that page.
Unofficial sponsor, I once again want to shout out Otaku Palace Anime Jewelry. Got my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure ring, so couldn't go the JoJo episode without shouting them out again. If you want some sweet, sweet anime jewelry, I just got a Trafalgar Law ring in the mail today. Very excited about. If you want some high quality anime jewelry that looks sleek, makes you look cool, go check out Otaku Palace Shop.
We are back on the second pillar of our three Bravery Punch shonen pillars. We want to talk about the crew. I think this is going to be the lengthiest part of today's analysis, and for good reason, because Stardust Crusaders is nothing if not a road trip of some boys going to Cairo.
Yeah, this is why I thought the crew was an important pillar. This show, this whole series, we get crew after crew after crew that are centered around this main character that help him achieve his dream in such a powerful way. And I truly think like the part 3 crew in particular is like epitome. That's the right word, right? It's the epitome of what a shonen crew should be. Just people kind of covering all aspects of their abilities and things like that. So who is our crew, you ask? Of course, we mentioned Jotaro Kujo. I'll let you mention your boy.
Joseph Joestar.
Kakyoin.
Noriaki.
Noriaki Kakyoin. Jean-Paul.
I think it's Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre
Polnareff.
Polnareff and Muhammad Avidal and everybody's favorite little bulldog, Iggy.
What a crew. I want to say right off the bat, I've never seen an anime character with the name of Hamid. I just love to see it. This is back in the 80s. That's sick. I mean, it's just great to see. He's a really cool character.
Yeah, I think it's cool that it is a world travel story, and they are characters from all over the world. We have an American, Joseph. We have 2 Japanese students, Jotaro and Kakyoin, a French man, an Egyptian man, and a dog.
Where's Iggy from?
Dogtown.
So I almost want to look at each of these characters individually. I
Yeah.
feel like you could have some fun.
Yeah.
Holistically, before we get into that, I think Araki does an awesome job having these characters interact like episode to episode. I mean, Polnareff we'll get to, but the other characters, I love seeing them together, and I love seeing them work together down to the very end. They really know, you said this the whole time while we were watching, they stand each of different strengths, and they use them in different times. Like, they'll be underwater, and it's like, oh, you can't use Star Platinum for this reason. That makes sense. So now we have to use this other person's stand. Can't use fire right now, so you have to do this. And it all kind of makes sense, and it's a cool way to give each character a moment to shine.
Yeah, I think with that crew in that final battle, it was essential that they were all like pulled apart, and we got to see them beat Dio by working together almost. It took, like Polnareff, Avidal, and Iggy have to kind of clear the way, have to get like the head general out of the way. Kakyoin figuring out the ability. They're just, each one of them played their own role in helping defeat Dio in a way that you never, I feel like, truly see in a shonen. The villain is always beaten by the other hero in, a big smackdown. Maybe a side character does something to the villain to knock him down for a minute or weaken them for a second, but it's always the final blow from the hero that really drives it home. But I think this is a fight where, yes, Jotaro deals the final blow, but that's all because of everything that his crew set up and did for him in the beginning. And I think that's why the crew is such an essential pillar, and it's done so well here.
That's what I was going to say, is Jotaro does get that 1v1, but in other shows, especially like in One Piece, instead of having that sort of progressive teamwork to wear down the enemy, it's just like individual fights, which can be cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But this was also good to see the like wearing down of Dio as a team effort. Let's talk about some of these crew members.
I do want to say one more
Do it.
little thing of them kind of as a holistic thing that I think is really cool is we talked about how they're a group kind of bound together by duty. They all have a shared goal. Kakyoin wants to get revenge because Dio controlled his mind, also because he's the MILF hunter himself, and he wants, Jotaro's mom. Joseph obviously wants to save his daughter, as Jotaro wants to save his mother, and Avidal realizes kind of the whole sort of danger that Dio can play out into the world, Polnareff avenging his sister. They all have their reasons to go after Dio, and they're a group that initially is bound together by duty and this obligation to go beat Dio. But I think we eventually do kind of see them become friends as we see Jotaro stare at the picture at the end, his tearful goodbye to Polnareff, and just all these little moments here and there. I think like when they're laughing at the sun together, they just kind of have these fun moments where, yes, they did go on a crazy, terrible adventure, but I do think we see them start off bound by duty and grow into friends.
You're talking about when they find the Sun Arcana and about to die of heat stroke.
And then
that's a fun little time.
Yeah, it's just the boys laughing at the sun.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess that's one idea of fun for sure.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of all the things I wanted to say about them holistically as a crew that works together really well. And again, when we talk more about stands later on, we can kind of talk about the powers and how they work together and stuff. But I think let's look at these boys one by one. Who do you want to start with?
Do we need to say anything more about Joseph Joestar? The man had his whole Bravery Punch episode already. He is the same but mature and wiser here. He's got his fun stand, Hermit Purple. I really like his fights because, one, we know this character a lot by now, and he has to do the Joseph stuff of being witty and smart to outdo his opponent. So really anytime he's on the screen, he's fun. He's always like yelling.
Oh my god.
He's always yelling and doing he's doing the Speedwagon, like narrating, which is really fun. I don't know if there's much more to say about him, really.
Yeah, I just love that Araki included him in the way he did. I think the way he wrote him into the story is so cool too. Like I said earlier on, his stand, Hermit Purple, was made in a way that pulls him out of the center light and makes him the navigator of the crew.
Yeah, it is still essential to their journey.
Yeah, he is I think Araki mentions at one point it's like a data collection stand. He wanted them to have something that could help them in their journey in a more analysis data-y type of way. And so I love that Joseph is our guy for that. He's truly the glue to this whole entire group. He found Avidal. He knows Jotaro is kind of like a key in this whole journey, and I think he just is a really beautiful addition to the crew.
We also get some stakes with him that I appreciate. There's a couple scenes later on where he, maybe even in the middle actually, right before they get to Egypt, they like are calling up Susie Q, his wife, and she's wondering where he is, and he's like, oh, we can't tell her because she'll be worried. And those are little bits, but they just add a little more emotional depth to what's going on, because when you think he's died, that was the saddest death for me, not just because we've known him, but because he has people we know waiting for him. Like, obviously they all do. I mean, we don't know their stories, but it's very tangible that Jotaro's grandma, Susie Q, is like waiting for them both to come home. And so Joseph just adds a little more emotional depth to the story that helps push it a little further, I think.
Oh yeah. Love us some Joseph Joestar. Always welcome in the Bravery Punch studio.
Yeah, Joseph, if you're listening, please come by.
All right, but let's move on to his right-hand man, I think, and that is Muhammad Avidal, our Egyptian god.
So he is a fortune teller by trade, I think, right?
Yeah. He knows about all the tarot cards, so he's kind of an informational center of the story. I feel like he's the moral compass of the group in a sense, maybe not the moral compass, but he is this like fire spark of hope, and like in this group he is really like tried and true and like reliable. I feel like more than any other crew member. Joseph, yes, we love him and he's crazy, but is he the most reliable? He could be off like flirting with someone somewhere, or Jotaro, he just does his own thing. Polnareff's an idiot. Kakyoin is pretty reserved. But Avidal, I feel like, is the character who is very reliable, the center of it, there for everybody when they need him.
I feel like I can't quite describe Avidal's character. I don't know. I feel like I definitely missed him when I thought he died, and then on his real death, it was awesome. But if I'm thinking about him as a character, I don't think I can quite describe his personality quite like Joseph. I want to see. Can you? What stands out to you about him as a guy? Oh yeah, but that was okay. So he just did the finger clicky thing. That only came in post resurrection. So you're right. I think, but like, yeah. Who's Abdal as a guy? Who is he?
Avidal, he is the hype man. He's the inspirational speaker. He is the only one who went after Polnareff. He is the only one, I guess, who kind of cared about him in his like true moment of peril. He's saved him multiple times. He's just truly like a good guy, more than like we even see Jotaro. I think Avidal has a lot more care for his friends in a much more loving way. Like he literally sacrifices his life to save Polnareff and Iggy. And if it wasn't for that, the whole entire crew would have lost. So I know it just is. It does sound generic, but again, this is early days of Shonen. He is solid, reliable, supportive, saving his friends, putting his life on the line for the other crew members. And I don't think any other one of them would put their life, unless it was against Dio. It was the fight for Dio. Like Kakyoin does, but those are kind of the only moments they're really like sacrificing themselves for each other. He literally sacrificed himself, and I think that is like very powerful to Avidol multiple times, twice for Paul Naref.
You're convincing me. I think it's what I said earlier, that this is a story about actions over words, and maybe my 2021 brain is just too used to the talk no jutsu, too used to the speeches about friendship and the grand gestures, the grand like Deku Todoroki moments of yelling during the fight. You're definitely right. Abdul definitely fights for his friends, even if he's not yelling about it. He's doing it, and that's what's important. It's just a different type of story, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. And so many other shonen, like these moments are a lot bigger and dramatized. Bombastic. Great word. But in JoJo, everything is pretty quick and moves fast. Every death is so sudden and instant. There's no final speech, no final goodbye, no heartfelt, this is what you need to do, this is your destiny. It's shown to us a lot more, and that's something I really appreciate about Araki's writing style. And another wild thing about Avidol is he dies twice, I guess. And I remember hearing something that like it was due to backlash that he put him back in, but that's not true. I found a quote about why Araki killed him twice. I might not read this whole quote, but I always like inserting words from the author here. So Araki says kind of about Avidol dying twice. He says, I killed him once in India because I'm always trying to keep readers from getting bored with the same pattern. I also wanted to add some reality to the story by having someone getting sacrificed. I thought it would be great to add in an episode where they lose a team member. I didn't intend to erase him forever, though, but I thought it'd be easy if he came back to life immediately, so I wanted to prep a flashy comeback so that readers would be able to accept it. When I draw JoJo, I never plan out the small things. In the end, I managed to bring Avidol back just before they reached Egypt, but I never planned that beforehand. It was just an idea that came to me while drawing. Now that I think back on it, since I killed him once, I probably should have made him more important in the story. Of course, these thoughts all come to me after I've finished the story. Making the story center around Avidol would have been very adventurous at the time, he laughs. Even in the character popularity poll, I don't think he was ever in any of the top spots. Everyone just wanted to see Jotaro fight. Also, drawing magicians red was a bit of a struggle for me.
I wonder, I'm sad to say it, but I wonder if that's because he's black. I wonder if that affects his popularity, especially like there, huh?
I think that's definitely a possibility. But what I think is so wild about this quote is how he talks about it was an idea that came to me while I was drawing, which means as he's working on the story, as he's just drawing these characters, that's how it unfolds in his head. I really don't. I'm always so curious about kind of like the creative path that an author takes. Like I'm so curious how Oda does like the crazy One Piece world building stuff. But like here, Araki is just focused on character design and their stands and making those things connect, where he's not focusing on like this bigger, larger story. He just kind of he knew that they were going to get to Dio. There's this whole kind of interview where he comments on different characters that I've been pulling a lot for all these episodes. And he just talks about how, I didn't really plan that to happen. He didn't know what all the stands were going to be based off of the tarot cards. He just kind of made it up as he went. Like, which is, I just find fascinating. And like,
Araki is a mad lad.
He's a mad lad, a true mad lad. So I love that he knew he was going to bring Avidol back to life, but he didn't know how in the moment when he killed him. Like, that's crazy. That's, like, wild. You know Oda's, like, 3 years ahead in his mind when he's writing. He's like, I know this is where my hand is, but my brain is here. Like, that's how has to be how he works. But, like, Araki is just, like, in the zone, like just drawn away. Like I think that's so beautiful.
That's so funny. And of course, not one technique is better than the other. No way are we saying that. That's just very interesting to hear about.
Yeah. And like I was saying too, he puts a lot of emphasis into the character design, but another thing he puts a lot of emphasis in is the character name. And this next character in particular too, he wanted to pick a special constructed name for him, and that is Noriko Kakyoin. Noriaki Kakyoin. And he is our straight edge student, essentially. And Araki wanted a name that kind of emulated that to some degree. And Duffy, you know a lot more about kind of kanji and Japanese. I don't know if reading the name, if you have any insight into it.
So I'm going to look live on air here. So let's see. So Noriaki is written with flower and capital. So it's like the same kanji that goes into Tokyo. Then there are two that I don't know. And the last one is bright, or like also using the word explain. So unfortunately, I can't be the authority here. Hopefully in a later episode, we'll actually get more of an expert that we can interview about this name in particular. But I can tell you 3 of the 5 are flower, capital, and bright. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I did actually find that quote about how he put together the name, just because I thought you might find it a little interesting. I always think of both the first and last names together as a set. His last name, Kakyoin, I took from a place in my hometown of Sendai. It's a place that I always pass through on my way to Sendai Station, so it's the name of a very dear place to me. And so I made kanji. It's kanji here. So I made Kakyoin's first name, which can be read as either Noriaki or Tenmi. The first name to go along with Kakyoin was Tenmi. So in my head, I always just call him Tenmi. So I don't know, just kind of a weird little thing.
Araki, let me get this straight. You spend all that time thinking about this man's name, and then you take him out of the freaking story for so long? I was really sad. He is out of it in Egypt for so long. They get to Egypt, and he gets his eyes taken out by the water stand guy. And he's out of it for so long after that. And I was really sad because Kakyoin was finally starting to get some like screen time. He'd had his whole fight with Baby Death 13.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a lot of fun. And then he's just taken out of it. And we're not here to like critique the writing, but that was something I was definitely disappointed in. I always loved Kakyoin's character design. I think it might be my favorite. I think so. I don't know. I really like how he looks. And he was finally starting to get some awesome action, not getting overshadowed by Polnareff. And then he's just taken out. And I like, on the one hand, that it shows the fights have stakes. I like all that stuff, just like how I liked Abdal dying. I just wish it had been Polnareff. I just wish it didn't have to be him, because he is a really cool guy who I don't think got enough time. That's as negative as I'll go this episode. I like Kakyoin. I wanted more time with him.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I do love Kakyoin. I love every moment he's in. I think he's a very witty boy, and we do get a really amazing final moment though with him.
Of course,
with his standoff against Dio, we get that kind of little flash into his life and his stand. You know, I'll talk more about it when we talk about stands, but I think Hierophant Green is. Araki's just a great writer with picking his stands for his characters, because Hierophant Green it's a ranged stand, and right away from that we can gather, Kakyoin likes to put distance between himself and the people around him. You can look at Jotaro's stand. I won't go on this tangent now, but you know what I'm saying. I just think it's really well done how Araki pairs stands with stand users, and I think Hierophant Green and Kakyoin are a beautiful pair, not only because that sleek green suit and those green splashes, but, you know, I just think it's so much heart is put into all these characters, and I love you for that, Araki. I love you.
I agree. I think that's all I have for him. He's just not in enough for me.
Yeah.
Would have loved more.
No final Emerald Splash here?
No final Emerald Splash. We got to get to the tall white-haired elephant in the room, which is Polnareff. And I won't hate on him too much. What I'll say is, you know, we can tolerate Zenitsu. We can tolerate Sanji to an extent. We can tolerate these characters. These characters are not the main focus of a majority of the episodes. And where Polnareff really grated on me was that he is the majority of Stardust Crusaders, it feels like. The majority of the fights center on him. And at some point, I'm just like, Araki, why is this not just called Polnareff's Bizarre Adventure? What's going on? And I'm sure you are more well-versed in the JoJo like community, and I'm sure that's like already been discussed to death, but I definitely want to know what you think about Polnareff being such a main focus for so much.
I remember my first watch through it, really, because like I said, I watched it week to week. It was pretty grating sometimes, because each week I was like, I want to see more Jotaro. I want to see more Jotaro. Like Araki says, in that quote about all little people just want to see Jotaro fight. And there was a point where I was like, I don't want to see Polnareff on these wacky adventures. I want to see Jotaro fight. And again, this is my last Araki quote for this episode, I promise. I know I've been dropping a lot, but Araki says about Polnareff on screen time, it's more, sorry, this isn't where the quote starts, but initially he's talking about how Jotaro and Joseph, kind of the main characters, are calm and collected and can't really, as you were saying, they can't really fall into these weird, wacky, bizarre things. And so Araki says Polnareff was the best answer I could come up with for personality and visual appearance that would still be able to stand uniquely apart from those two, Joseph and Jotaro. He makes up for what the two Joestars can't do, so he may have always been special to me. And then there in parentheses it says Araki laughs. For example, when he's with Jotaro and Joseph, Polnareff becomes a character who can both tell jokes and act serious. Polnareff's the one who always falls into enemy traps and has bathroom trouble on the journey. If that had happened to Jotaro, it would have made him seem too careless, and the story would have gotten off kilter.
So I was right. I was so right.
Yeah.
Listeners, before this episode, I was talking about this. I was saying, I think Jotaro's too cool. And to get the man, the legend, Araki himself, I swear this was not planned. I feel so validated. I should be a manga writer. No, that totally makes sense because, and I'll put some respect on Polnareff. He's not all terrible. He has his moments. And you mentioned the lovers fight where Jotaro goes straight at him. In the genie fight with the fake Avdol or whatever, he doesn't trust the genie. He's like, you're not real, you're a stand. So he does have his moments of like clarity and understanding, but he still has all these crazy, like the whole baby fight. It's just like so much. It's no wonder Jotaro can't get involved with these things because it wouldn't fit with people's perception of Jotaro. That makes me think. I won't say if that's good or bad. Like, Araki's an author and it's his story. What I will say is I wonder how that's going to influence the rest of the story because it kind of seems like there's a divide between making a really cool badass and making all these shenanigans that happen around the badass. So I wonder if
Part 4, just get ready.
I wonder if we'll have a main character as cool and serious as Jotaro,
Get ready
or
for
if
part
we'll go
4.
a little looser.
Oh, get ready for part 4.
And I'm not going to hate. I'm not going to say Polnareff should be canceled. I'm not going to say that. But gosh, there was a lot of Polnareff content. Yeah. If he had the thunderclap and flash that Zenitsu did, it'd be one thing. He just doesn't.
He's got Silver Chariot.
Silver Chariot's fine. He's fine. He's cool. It's whatever. I just don't need to see him every episode.
Yeah, no, I can definitely get on board with that critique. But again, as I rewatch the show more and more, there's more parts of it I fall in love with, and even Polnareff I find myself enjoying more and more on each rewatch. And it made me realize something with how fights happen in all of JoJo's is I think there is a lot of planning in each fight. And when Dio's crew, when all of these different stand users see Polnareff, they see him, oh, this is obviously the weakest link of the crew. Let's go after him first. We'll get him out of the way, and then we can easily get to the others. So I think to some degree, that's why we see him getting in so many wacky scenarios, is he is underestimated a lot, and, he always kind of wiggles his way out in the end. But I think it's really... I don't know. There's just something with Polnareff. Like we see him, he's the one character I think we really grow with in this story. Every other character is kind of static, but Polnareff, we see a lot of change in, and whether that is a good or bad thing, I know we sometimes want to see that with our protagonist, but I don't know. Like Araki says, there's something special to Polnareff for him, just because he stands in this weird place of being serious sometimes, but also being wacky and goofy. And I think that truly inspires future JoJo's that you're going to be seeing coming up here.
Maybe Araki is the actual shonen protagonist here. He has to level up, and we have to get a few Polnareffs out of the way for him to level up. And I'll accept that. Last up, Iggy.
Iggy the dog.
Iggy is fun. I just wish there was more. I like that he talked in his fight with the bird. I actually love that fight.
Mm-hmm.
I love that fight. But it felt like something that Araki made up on the fly. It's like, you know what? Iggy's going to talk. Iggy's not going to just have a fight. Iggy's going to talk. And I really liked that Iggy talked.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of wish it happened right away. Not that when I say talk, I don't need Iggy like, hey, Jotaro, like, we're going to go.
It's just inner monologue.
The inner monologue gave him a lot of personality and added a lot to him, and he was funny. And I liked it. And I just wish there was more of that. Like, Araki keeps showing me things that I like that he maybe didn't think of or just didn't want to do at the certain time. And I've just wanted more. But I guess we can't get that, you know?
Well, in a sense, you kind of do. And again, that's what's so cool about JoJo is each arc as Araki evolves as an author. I think a lot of these things you're critiquing, you're going to see like, wow, was he listening to me?
Yeah, we got a direct line to Araki.
But yeah, I love Iggy the dog. Got a little Iggy the dog figure here in the house, Bravery Punch manner, if you will. And I just think he's a fun little guy, goofy little dog. His Stan the Fool, Araki has actually said, is his like ideal drawing of what a stand is supposed to be. It's I don't know. It just like it's inanimate objects mixed with organic objects. It's just kind of this combination of life and an object. And he has said, like, designing Iggy's stand, that's like a core of stand designs. It's like the baseline. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say there?
I think so. He's cool. He's like the archetypal.
Yeah, it's just like that is his. When you think of a stand, I guess like a stand is like what the Fool kind of looks like.
I like the Fool. The Fool's really cool.
Oh yeah, no, it's a really fun stand and a really great crew that we have here. Like
go ahead.
Yeah, like in any of our other episodes, we've never really individually dived into the boys like that. I feel like.
I think it will happen when it can, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course, there's other crews that we'll be able to get individual dives on in the future, but I think this is just one that really like set the baseline of what a shonen crew should be. It showed how to support your friends, how to work together, powers covering kind of different aspects. You want that D&D party that is really complete, and I think we really get that here with the Stardust Crusaders.
We will be right back with our final pillar, the power and progression system. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Bravery Punch. We got one more pillar here, and that's stands. Well, not the pillar is our power and progression system, and today our power and progression system is stands.
Stands were hyped up, of course, and very exciting to me as a first-time viewer. I love Star Platinum. I love them all. We won't give you the deep dive in each stand. We'll just talk overarching here about the sort of the trends that we see in them. And the one thing I noticed at first glance in each of these fights, it kind of seems like there isn't a power and progression system. It kind of seems like the stands all have their set powers and they use them in different ways. And it's in how they use them that we see that progression element. We don't really get the typical training arc. We don't really get the, ooh, now I can Emerald Splash Overdrive. There's nothing like that. But to say there's no progression would be a disservice.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely not our traditional, like, Star Platinum gets to level 2. Yes, I guess Jotaro does fly in the end, so there's that progression in power. But, he just learns more about what his stand can do in the end, and that's kind of the bigger progression. Is it's not so much focused around getting stronger, because a stand is they call them like the reflections of someone's soul when it manifests. And so I guess your soul can't really power up, I guess, is maybe why it's a little different, but we really just kind of see the stands as they are, and it's more about finding the hole in that enemy stand, because like each week when there's another enemy stand, seems perplexing, unbeatable. You're like, how are they going to do it? But as you watch it, as you see their reactions as they fight, as they kind of dip their toes in the water with how the stand works, they're like, oh wait, there's maybe this one way we can get around it. And I think it's those moments that are what make JoJo so fun. Because yes, Star Platinum, it's always good to see a good Ora beatdown, but sometimes it's also really cool when Hermit Purple is just doing something wacky, and I don't know, Alvidol and Joseph are magnetized together and they just gotta do, I don't know.
I like to view it as there's a little progression, there's a little even training arc, if you will, in each stand fight. And I think this is super clear in Jojo's fights towards the end. In like the video game fight where Kakyoin has been taken at this point into the new soul stand guy, Jojo doesn't even know how to play the game. He goes in confidently, he doesn't even know how to play the game, and we see him get better, learn the rules, and eventually start just wiping the floor with this guy. And he has that progression that we typically see over arcs in other stories happen within just that one fight. And we see it with the flying too in the final fight. At first you're like, wait a minute, what are these powers coming from? But they've actually laid down the groundwork the whole time. They're saying there are these types of stands, like the World and Star Platinum are similar types. It should make sense. They have similar powers they can do. And Jojo trains in that fight and gets better. He's able to learn about the time stop ability. He figures out how to do it enough to beat his opponent. And I like to view it as he has that little training arc and that progression we see just condensed.
Yeah. I think it's so cool how Araki unlock stands for us as you go. Even from the very first fight, he just introduces this one idea. There are close range stands that are super strong, and then he's up against Kakyoin and Hierophant Green, which is a long range stand, but not very strong. And we keep getting little things like that. There's the remote stands, there are bigger kind of like manifest location stands. There's just a lot of they eventually do start to get really wild and bonkers as we go on, but I think here in part 3, they do a really great job of establishing what a stand is, what it can do, and what other stands can do. Because as you learn about how other stands work, it kind of gives you an edge on the next enemy. So it's that knowledge, I guess, that's their progression. It's like, oh, we know about remote stands now, so now we maybe know how to take advantage of this person.
I wish we could go into each stand individually. We're already running at one of our longest BP episodes to date, though. Folks, if you want to hear more about these stands, though, make sure you're subscribed because we are going to be talking with some people, maybe in the next episode or the one after, about all different types of JoJo stands. So don't go anywhere.
Yeah, some Joe Bro bonus content here on Bravery Punch, folks.
Don't have to wrap up yet, though. Anything else about this power and progression of the stand that you want to say today?
Not a ton, I guess, really. I just do love how Araki puts so much intent into the design of each stand. Every single line, every piece of armor plate on every stand is thought out, and care and love is put into them. And I really appreciate that about Araki, how the art plays such a central role in JoJo's. And I think bringing stands in is just incredible because it allows him as an artist to just go so much more buck wild with these designs, and it makes something so aesthetically pleasing to look at. And I think that's why stands are as fun and why people love them as much as they do.
It's crazy that animals can have stands.
Yeah.
Like what other, like you're not going to, I guess One Piece has devil fruits that can like,
Tony?
Like the gun ate the devil fruit and became like a gun dog. So, you know, I guess Araki probably set the precedent for that.
Yeah. But that's really, I don't have a ton more to say about stands. I think it's a...
There's more to be said, but not in this episode.
Not in this episode, because, of course, Duffy is still on his JoJo's journey, my friends. What you are getting here in Bravery Punch is the true, genuine reactions of shonen experiencing JoJo's for the first time.
Did you just call me a shonen?
Yeah, I did.
Duffy shonen. Well, what kind of punch does Stardust Crusaders throw?
Just a whole bunch of them, a whole flurry of them.
A lot, and they're all high quality, I think.
Oh, yeah. And we have more JoJo's to come in the future. More shonen to talk about in the future. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back.
かっこいいアニメパワーアップドキドキスタート
Follow us wherever you are listening to this podcast. Make sure to rate it as well. Share the podcast with any other weaves out there. And stay brave, everyone.
Time I was falling in love. Now I'm on the Tatakai.
Wait, talk more into your mic. It still seems like
Nothing I can do. I'm looking in the mirror at myself.
Yeah, darn, your gain needs to go way up now. How's that?
What?
That's so weird. Mics are so cray dog.
Cray donk. Cray donk.
All right, how's mine looking? No, it's a
Cray
little more.
donk.
Okay. All right, that's gonna be good. Okay.